What is going on, guys, and welcome to top 8 brackets extensions. But before we look at actual extensions, since the last versions they have changed some things around in extension manager, let's just go over the basics how we can get an extension in brackets text editor. So basically we have two options, right? We have this little icon over here, or we can go through file menu over here like this, right? So this would also lead us to the same place. So what we would do over here, we just double click it over here, and then you can see what are our options, right? So you can see this is going to be our window over here like this, and we have default, right? So these would be the ones that actually come by default. So basically, the moment you actually download the brackets, these would be the extensions you right away have. And over here, you can see that we have this little icon, right, which would be disable. So let's say that if you don't like some of them, or let's say all of them, or whatever, right, you can go ahead over here and actually disable them. Then over here, you can see that these would be the ones that we have installed, right? So these are the ones that I already currently have. However, I actually disabled them, right? And one by one, we're actually enable them. And then we're going to look at what each brackets extension does. Then over here, these would be the themes, which would be the background, which we're going to cover just in like literally 1 or 2 minutes, right? And over here, these would be the brackets extensions that we're talking about, right? And since the latest versions, what you have over here is this filtering method, right? So you see this is going to be downloads or last updated, right? So if you pick one of them, right, it shows you, let's say over here with the downloads, which would be the brackets extension with the most downloads, right? So over here you can see that Emmet is a leader, and actually rightfully so. And next one would be Beautify, and then brackets Git and brackets icons, right? So what's happening is, right, that you don't really need to spend too much time of guessing, right? If you see that actually people are using it, right, you can just go to more info, find out what is this bracket extension does, right? And then you can actually go ahead and actually install it if you need it. But at least with this case, you know that this is not something that you just randomly picked and it's not actually going to work or anything like that, right? There's a reason why this is the most downloaded brackets extension. Now let's go back ahead and let's talk about actual themes, right? So themes would be the visual background. And if we go over here and if we talk about view over here, you can see that we have these basic themes. So if I click over here, basically what I have is brackets dark or brackets light, right? So these would be my default themes, right? So this would be an option dark or black pretty much, right? So over here, you can also see that we can change the font size and font family, right? So we're just going to stick with brackets dark over here. And if we go back over here to the extension manager, right? And if we go back to themes, right? We're going to see that we have way more options. However, I would always suggest before you actually download the theme, go ahead over here. This is going to take you to the Git, right? And they were gonna pretty much explain and show some examples, right? That before you do anything, just let's check it out whether you actually like this theme, right? Don't start downloading after downloading. I mean, just it's really a waste of time if you can really just go ahead and in 30 seconds you can find out whether you actually like the theme or not, right? So that would be one of my suggestions. And let's go ahead and let's start actually working with a brackets extension. And the first brackets extension in our top 8 is not going to be Emmet. It's actually going to be Beautify. So why we would use a brackets extension Beautify? So let's imagine the situation that we are sitting in our HTML and let's say we need to make a nav bar, right? So here we're going to say this is going to be the nav. Over here this is going to be an ordered list. Then within ordered list over here we're going to say this is going to be list item. Then this is going to be the actual link, right? So we're going to say href, right? For now, we're just going to put a dummy link, right? And over here, we're going to say that this is going to be hello world, all right? Over here like this, world from coding addict over here, right? And then let's say we're going to grab this guy over here like this, right? And we're going to start copying and pasting, right? So this is going to be number 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Something like this. And while our live preview obviously shows our document and everything's fine, but let's go ahead and let's actually start changing the links, right? You can see that how annoying it is right now, right? So you can see that pretty much everything got messed up very, very fast. And for the large document, this is going to be really the case. I mean, within, I don't know, your first 2 minutes of working, right? So this is where the brackets Beautify comes in, right? So here we're going to go to a brackets extensions. over here. And the first one we're going to download. And then after that, we're going to work already, like I said, with the ones that I have installed, because it's just going to be a little bit quicker. So we go over here to a Beautify, right, over here. And you can see that if I'm going to make the screen bigger, right, you can see that I have install over here, or I can just get more info if I want, right? So over here, I'm just going to say that let's go to more info over here. And you can see that this is going to explain that what Beautify does, right, over here, can run manually, right, or a file selection. And over here, these would be the options, right, that we can use. And basically what Beautify does, it beautifies your code, right? So again, we can just close these guys over here right now. And let's go back and let's actually install, right? So over here, I'm going to say install. Then we close over here. And we have a couple of options, right? So we can select the code over here like this. And we have this little icon. If we press it, right, this is how it's going to look like, right? Or let's just undo this. And the other option would be over here. If we have over here on edit, right, we have Beautify on save, right? So every time I'm going to save the document, right, it's actually going to make the Beautify, right? So over here, if I'm going to say, like, I don't know, hello world over here. And if I'm going to save this right now, right, the moment I save it, you can see what happens, right? So now my code is actually way more readable and it's much more easier to work. And it does the same thing also in CSS. Now that we have installed and worked with the Beautify, let's look at our next extension, which is going to be Emmet. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete this now for now, over here like this. And then we're going to go over here again to extension managers. And this time we're not going to use the available, right? We're going to actually use the installed. So I'm going to click this icon right away over here. And you can see that where's the Emmet over here. This is the Emmet, right? And again, if you want more info, we can click over here and we can actually check it out. What is Emmet, right? And this is high-speed HTML and CSS workflow. And Emmet is not exclusively for a bracket, right? It's actually for all the code editors, right? Well, I mean, I cannot speak for all of them, but for the most popular ones, you're always going to get Emmet, right? And over here, if you go over here to Emmet.io, this actually explains everything that Emmet does. And just for Emmet itself, right, I can make the whole tutorial, right, because there's a lot of information over there. But basically what it does, it saves you time that you don't need to actually write a tags, right, write an attributes or write the long syntax, right? And let me just show you by example how it would work, right? So again, but if you want more information, you can go to Emmet.io, where you can actually gonna go ahead and read everything about Emmet. So let's go back over here and let's say that I'm gonna enable Emmet right now, right? So here I'm gonna close. So let's say with the same nav, right? So if I would want the same nav bar, how I would do it with Emmet. So with Emmet over here, I could, let's say over here, I could write that this is gonna be the nav over here. Then within the nav, we're gonna have a unordered list. Then another thing, we would have a list item over here like this. And list item is actually gonna have a links over here like this. And then let's say that I would want, let's say 8 of them, right? So here I'm just gonna say this is gonna be 8. And over here, if I put parentheses over here like this, and if I press tab, let's see what happens, right? So right away, we would have actually a nav on our list items, and over here, all we have to do is fill out the hrefs, right? So way more faster than working with a regular HTML over here in this case, right? And the thing is with Emmet, it's a little bit, not, I wouldn't say harder, but it just takes a little bit of time to actually tell yourself to stop typing everything, right? Because you always have this thing where you start, okay, I'm gonna have a nav with an ID over here, and this is gonna be, I don't know, side nav over here like this, right? You need to really remind yourself that in the beginning, right, that it's much more easier to do something like this, right? So you write side nav over here, side nav like this, press tab, right? And you can right away have the nav with the class of side nav, right? Again, we're not going to be covering in detail the syntax, how to work with Emmet, right? This is just showing what in nutshell what Emmet does, right? But once you start working it, you're not going to be going back to actually using the regular HTML, because you'll see how much time it saves, right? So let's say, for example, a link, right? I just press A, and this is going to be my link right away with href, right? Or let's say over here, the link, let's say to the main style sheet, right? We go back over here, I just type link, again tab, right, and we right away have the href, right? So again, this does save you time and annoyingly typing the classes or attributes or anything like that, right? Now also, you don't really, if you don't know, let's say how many allies you're gonna have, right? You don't need to, like, in the beginning, I think that was one of the things that I was like, well, I don't know how many list items and maybe I'm going to change something. You can always do very basic, right? So you can just do an ordered list. Then once you have an ordered list, let's say you're going to say that this is going to be li, right? Even though you don't know how many of them, right? So you can basically work down, right, from the tree. You don't need to right away tell everything that you need to know, right? The moment, yeah, I know, if you, let's say, if you know for sure what you would need, right? So this is very convenient, right? Using this LIs, right? And actually multiplying them, right? Over here like this. However, even if you don't know what you're exactly going to be putting in there, right? You can still use Emmet. And like I said, Emmet also works with a CSS, right? So over here, let's just do a main CSS over here. Let's link it. And let's just look at one basic example, right? So over here, if I'm gonna go back and let's say I'm gonna say over here that this is gonna be, I don't know, link, right? So one of them, and over here we're gonna say that this is gonna have a unordered list, right? We're gonna say this is gonna have a background color, right? So we can just type BCG over here, and you can see that right away it gives me an options, right? Instead of over here writing a background color, right over here. So let's say BCG over here, press tab, and you can see that we have right away a background, right? Now, obviously, we can change this. We can just say red, something like this, right? But we don't need to retype it. Now, for a CSS, obviously, you have a brackets code hints, right? So it's not like you're totally lost. However, it does help you and it does actually save you. After Emmet, the next extension we're going to look at is going to be brackets icons, right? And it's not that it's the most important one or anything like that. The reason why we're coming to third is just because we have a little light section, right, where we don't need to think much, right? So I'm going to delete over here. I'm going to save this main CSS. We can go back to index.html and we can actually delete this, right? We don't need this over here like this. And if we go back to extension manager over here like this, and we're going to look at for brackets over here icons, right? So let's wait for the installed ones over here, and you can see that these are going to be brackets icons. So I'm going to click over here, enable, over here like this. We close it over here like this, and you can see what happens, right? So what's happening is that each of our files is actually going to have this little icon over here, right? Whether this is going to be for HTML, this is going to be over here for JavaScript, and this is obviously going to be for our CSS, right? So it just gives you a little nice visual what this file is about, and it just looks. Now that we have our icons over here, let's look at HTML skeleton brackets extension. So here, if I go to brackets extensions again, we're going to go to installed over here like this. It's just sometimes it's annoying that it takes a little bit of a while once it actually downloads, right? So over here, we're going to go down, right? Then we're going to find where's the HTML skeleton, right? And over here, I'm just going to say this is going to be enable over here like this. And then we're going to have this little code icon over here. So what it does, right? So let's go ahead over here. And let's say that I'm going to delete this, right? And I want to quickly create a HTML file, right? So self-explanatory, the HTML skeleton is going to create a skeleton, right? And two of your favorite options is going to be basic skeleton or full HTML skeleton over here, right? So we just click it over here and you can see that I right away have a full skeleton, right? The only thing I need to add is languages. Over here, this is going to be my href, right? Where is my style sheet? Obviously title. This is going to be for JavaScript, where it's going to be my script files and everything like that, right? But everything is preset, so you don't need to retype in. And over here, you can see that we have even a meta characters, right? So let's go over here and let's look at more options, right? So if we have basic and if we have full skeleton, right? Then we have individuals ones, right? So this would be viewport, this would be external style sheet, inline style sheet, external script, right? This would be the image, right? And you can actually go ahead and play around with them and see which one you would like the most. But like I said, most likely what you will be using is going to be either a basic skeleton or a full HTML skeleton. If you're working with a Bootstrap, or more precisely the latest version of Bootstrap for beta, you're going to find this next extension very useful. So here, if we go to a Bootstrap extensions, I'm sorry, the brackets extension manager over here, and if I'm gonna click on installed, you'll have a Bootstrap starter template, right? So here we're just gonna click enable over here, and we're gonna close it. And if we go actually to the file over here, you can see that we have a new Bootstrap template. So we just double click over here, and actually, if I'm gonna save this, right? If I'm gonna say over here, then this is gonna be rename over here, and you know what, we just don't need to rename, we can actually save this over here, and then I'm going to say Bootstrap over here HTML over here like this. Now you can see that my file is saved, and if we go back to the folder that I'm working in, right, and if I have a Bootstrap HTML, you can see that this is what we're going to have. And this is exactly the same, well, maybe not exactly the same, but the same setup as if you would go over here to the starter template, right? And let's say over here, we're going to say this is going to be get Bootstrap in a Google, right? So this is going to be get Bootstrap over here like this. And over here, let's just delete this, whatever we have over here. Let's just say get Bootstrap, right? And this is what we're going to have, right? The Bootstrap, the most popular HTML and CSS. And if we go under get started over here like this, this is what you're going to have. You're going to have a starter template file, right? And if you look at it, right, this is exactly the same as if you would be working over here, right? So I'm going to go back over here, right? And you can see that we have the same setup, right? We right away have the CDN to a CSS. Then over here, these are going to be JavaScript files over here, right? So again, we don't technically do not save that much time, right? But in general, we don't need to mess around of going somewhere and actually finding something and copying, right? We can just go ahead over here and we just click new Bootstrap template, right? And if you really want to save time, right, you can see that this is going to be the short. And now let me show you my own personal, probably the favorite brackets extension. And the reason why it is my favorite, because it is very customizable, right? So here we're going to go to a brackets extension manager over here, and then we're going to say again installed, and we're going to look for a brackets snippets by EDC over here, this guy, right? So we're going to say enable over here, and then we're going to close it, right? And now we have this little light bulb popping up, right? And why do I like this extension? Well, there's two parts of it. First of all, it works like Emmet, right? So here you can see that this is going to have a library over here like this, right? And in the library, once we click it, right, you can see that we have an option of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and PHP, right? And these are the ones that actually you already have, right, pre-installed. And the way it works, right, you just find whatever extension or shortcut you would want over here, right? And the only thing you would need to do is actually have over here this anchor tag, right? And over here, what we're going to do is we're going to find where it is, let's say some kind of a sample, right? So here, this would be the lorem, right? The dummy text, right? So again, we go back over here and we just press plus, right? So now lorem is actually added to our shortcuts. So if I close this out over here, and if I just type lorem over here like this, you can see that this is going to be the text, right? But this is just the basics of this extension. So let's go back over here, and you can see that once I'm actually working with the dummy text, right, I can go over here and actually customize. First of all, I can say, you know what, I don't want this trigger, right? Let's say I would want the letter B or something like that, right? Now, it obviously doesn't make much sense. You would want something that actually explains of what's happening, right? Even though you have description, right? You would probably want something that there's the reason why it is lorem, right? Because we all know that lorem is going to stand for dummy text, right? Then over here, you see that it automatically says HTML, but you can obviously change this, right? And you can also change over here what would be the value, right? So let's say I only would want this text, right? So if I'm going to save this over here, and let's just delete this guy over here. And if I again type lorem, see what happens, right? Now we have a shorter text, right? And I actually could write my own text if I would want to, right? And if we go back over here, you can see that once we save this, then we cancel this one over here, right? If we go back to library, there's two things that we need to remember. First, if we want to use any of them, right, we need to add them over here to our installed ones, right? And the second thing, we can always go back and actually customize it more. So even though it is like Emmet, right, and you can see that there's this note, could not work through the variables with tab in HTML if Emmet is installed. So there's going to be the cases where they overlap. and you're gonna have to figure out what would be the best way actually for you to use either Emmet or using a different tag over here, right? However, over here we can add way more options, right? So let's say this is not going to be anymore a simple link, right? We can actually add right away where we would want the href, right away the text where we want, and all kinds of things like this, right? And obviously you can see that they have a lot of tags right over here like this. Now another thing that they're really good at is actually that you can make your own, right? So you can say new one over here and you can create your new one. Now where you would use that, right? So here you can see that I'm sitting over here in a Bootstrap HTML, right? And if you're familiar with the Bootstrap, but it's not just actually Bootstrap, even with HTML. A lot of times when you're, let's say, creating a file or creating a document, you're pretty much repeating a lot of times the sections that you're doing. So what you can do over here, you can actually create one and then reuse it, right? So let's again take example Bootstrap, right? So how we would write a section in Bootstrap. And over here, let's say that this is going to be, I don't know, skills section, right? So I'm going to say comment. This is going to be skills section over here, right? Then I'm going to copy and paste this guy over here like this. Well, I actually deleted it. I don't know why. But over here, I'm going to say this is going to be the end of skills section. Over here like this. Then we're going to say end of skills section. And let's say that we would want to speed up our process by using Emmet, right? So over here, I'm going to say this is going to be section. And this is, let's say, going to be an ID. And the ID is going to be skills, right? So now we have a skills section. Then working with Bootstrap, we would need a container. So we're going to say container. Then within a container, we would need a row, right? But this is going to be a title row. So what I'm going to say, this is going to be title row over here, right? So we're going to save this over here. And then we can just copy this one over here, right? So this is going to be the title row. And over here, we're going to say this is going to be a div with a row, right? So this is going to be the row. And then we're going to have a column. And let's say column is going to be spanning 12. And here, this is going to be a heading 1 with a text, I don't know, hello world. Right? So this is going to be our title. And obviously, in general, probably your titles for your sections would be a little bit more complicating, right? But let's just imagine that this is going to be the case, right? And over here, you can see that I forgot actually to put a dot for the Emmet. So we can go back over here and we can check it out that with Emmet, it's also easy, right? So if you mess up, over here, I needed to be this as a class. So once we press over here, right, well, we actually need to put the cursor over here. Now everything works, right? So now we have a div with a class of column 12. So now that we have hello world, this would be our title, right? And then again, we're going to do something similar, right? So then we're going to have, let's say over here, a row. And over here within the row, we're going to have a, let's say, column. Over here, again, we need to put a dot. Column, I don't know, let's say small, right? This is going to be 4. And let's say that this is going to be something along the lines of 3, right? So we can use Emmet and we can put a parentheses. And here in parentheses, we're going to say that this is going to be multiplied by 4, right? So press tab. Now we have a 4 columns that are spanning 4, right? Now the thing is, as you're working like this, right, there's obviously going to be different columns and there's obviously going to be different titles. However, you're starting to repeat. If you have, let's say, sections, right? Sections like this, and you have 20 of them, it really gets annoying to keep repeating and keep writing the same stuff. So what you can do over here, I can just save this guy, right? And again, it's going to work the same with HTML. Just Bootstrap, it's a little bit easier to show because Bootstrap uses a lot of these classes, right? And again, we just use the most basic ones, right? But in general, you would use class after class, whether it's margin, whether it's top center or anything like that, right? So we're going to go back over here now that we have actually copied this guy, right? Go to EDC. Then over here, we're going to press a new one and we're just going to go right away and we're going to copy and paste this, right? And over here, I'm going to say that this is going to be a basic over here section, right? And let's say over here, I'm just going to write this is going to be basic. I don't know, Bootstrap. I don't know, setup section. Over here, setup section. And then I'm going to use a scope and I'm going to find obviously HTML because this is what's going to be working. And over here, you can see the save and create, right? So we have a basic section. Now we can go back over here, right? And then this guy, let's say we're going to delete, right? And now every time I'm going to open a new section, all I have to say is basic section, press tab over here, and you can see that I actually saved the work. Now, obviously, if you're working like this, right, you wouldn't want the names over here, right? So you would want something blank over here, and this would be blank, right? So every time you can just fill in, right, what kind of section it's going to be or anything like that. Now you can obviously, like, I don't know, make accordions with this. You can make sliders. You can, I mean, you really have, your options are limited. If you're using the code again and again, right, this is really good for you to actually save. And the next extension we're going to cover is going to be Indent Guides that are actually going to help us to see better which one would be a parent element, which are children, and how actually they are stacked. So let's go ahead and let's go to a brackets extension manager. As always, we're going to go right away to installed, and we're going to look for Indent Guides. So they're going to be all the way in a bottom, I think, over here. Let me just find them. Where is installed? Over here, bracket snippets, Emmet, and actually I must have deleted. So let's go over here to a available, and over here I'm going to say this is going to be indent. Over here, guides, right? So we're going to say install over here like this. Now you can see that it's actually installing, right? And once we're done, this is what we're going to have, right? You can see this is going to be the parent element, and this is the children. I mean, this is going to be the comment, but in general, right? This is the parent, children, and the stack goes on and on, right? Now, if you want actually to customize these lines, let's say that this is not good enough for you, right? That they're actually this color. You can go over here to debug, right? And we have a open preferences file, right? And we can actually change the settings, not only on this indent guide, but on everything that we're actually working with a brackets. Now on the left side, you can see the default preference is JSON, right? And it says over here that this is going to be read-only file, right? And this over here, the brackets JSON, is actually where we can make changes, right? And if you're going to be scrolling down, you can see that this is, let's say over here, then, right? Remember the Beautify on save, right? You can see that it's set to true, right? And this is a JSON object, so, and obviously it has the same syntax, right? You can see that we're using the quote marks, right? And over here, you can see the brackets indent guides enable true, right? But that's all that it has for now, right? So if we go back over here, and if we just scroll it down, we can find it that actually it is going to be over here where we have two things, right? First of all, brackets indent guides, right? The style is going to be solid. And over here, you can see that we have two options, solid or dotted, right? So again, I'm going to stay with solid, but I would want to change the color over here. And how I would do that, because it wouldn't, nothing would happen if I would do it over here, because this is read only. So what we're going to do, I'm going to grab this guy over here with the whole comma and everything, right? I'm just going to copy this guy, and then we're going to make this screen smaller, or actually we can even close this one out over here like this, right? Over here, and this is going to be our bootstrap, and then we can make even this one bigger, right? And then anywhere where you would want, right? But obviously don't put it in an array with the bracket snippets, right? Because they're not related. But over here, let's say the Beautify on save. The next thing that I'm going to say that this is going to be the color, right? And let's say that we're going to change it to red over here, right? So I'm going to say 255 over here like this. Then let's say this is going to be 0, and this is going to be 0. Let's say this is going to be the 1 over here like this. So then we save this guy over here, and you can see what happens, right? Now my indent lines right away turn red over here, right? And again, this is not the only thing that you can change. As you can see that if you really want to dive in here, right, you can change the font sizes, you can change the font families, the tab sizes, the space units. I mean, everything that you're working actually with the brackets, right? In this case, this is going to be the longest one, is going to be the actual EDC bracket snippets, because it has the most information, right? But if you even scroll down over here, you can see that what would be the theme, right? Then we have a something called no distractions, right? So this is going to be the false. And again, I can go on and on and on about the things that you have in brackets JSON. But if there is some things that you just would want to explore over here, you can go over here and work with brackets JSON. Just obviously remember that you need to be careful, because this is pretty much your bracket setup, right? Now, I don't think it's a big deal to actually mess something up and download new ones, right? The brackets. But in general, if you need to be careful once you're working with those JSON files, because the changes that you make are actually going to be right away the moment you save it, they're going to be permanent. And the last extension we're going to look at is going to be brackets minimap. and it's pretty self-explanatory. What's going to happen is we're going to have a mini map over here on the right hand side that actually going to help us to navigate through our document. And for this, I actually added some dummy text, right? So we can just see how it would look like more realistically in real life, right? So here we're going to go again to brackets extensions, then we're going to wait till they actually download, right? So then we're going to have installed, and then we're going to look for a mini map. So we're going to go over here, installed. This is going to be mini map. We're going to say enable over here. We close this one out, and then you can see that nothing happens, right? Then we have a view, and under the view, we actually have a show mini map, and over here, this is going to be shortcut. However, you can see that nothing is happening. And what we would need to do in this case over here, we're going to go and find where it is reload with extensions over here. And again, this guy even has a shortcut, right? So we just press this, and then we're going to wait for a second till brackets reloads, and then 1, 2, 3 over here on the right hand side. This is what we have, right? So sometimes this happens if one of your extensions is not right away working, right? You can always go ahead and do this reload, right? Just to double check that maybe this is how they're supposed to do, right? So here you can see that if I'm holding over here on the touchpad, right, and with the other finger I'm scrolling, you can see that I'm going through the document, right? And obviously over here I can just change it around where I'm at, right? And obviously over here I can still work in my document, right? And over here again, this was the shortcut for the view, right? So this was a show mini map. So if I press Command and above the tab key, you can see what's happening, right? I can control the actual view of the mini map, right? Whether it's showing or where it's actually invisible.